Have you ever heard of Masayoshi Son?
What?
Have you ever heard of Masayoshi Son?
Is this just Yoshi's full name?
No, it's his kid. Masayoshi's son.
Oh, okay.
Masa means father. Masayoshi Son. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
So this guy, he is known for a couple things.
From Ireland.
He's known for a couple of things. One, he's number 3 of Japan's richest people. He's the third richest person in Japan. There's the normal way to say that. I don't know why.
Yeah, number 3 on the richest people list by...
He's the third richest person in Japan.
On what list, though? Is it just like by, like, you know, who says?
You know, you're opening up a bag of worms.
Am I?
Well, yeah, it is. It's difficult to calculate this because most really rich people
Have their money in assets.
Yeah, and they're not just walking around being like, here's how much money I've got. Like
Some of them are, though.
some of them are. But most of them are kind of locking some stuff up.
I am out here like, here's how much money I have. Like, look at this Bank of America account. It's got $2,073 in it right now. Look at this. Heck yeah, man. I posted screenshots. I'm printing them out. You know what?
You're not even blacking out your routing number in the screenshots.
I don't give my credit card any places. I just hand a paper that says, look at my bank account. And they go,
a screenshot of your bank account.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you can have whatever you want.
I got carded at Dunkin' Donuts yesterday.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it sounds like a freaking witch potion. What are you talking about?
Didn't know what he was doing. But he said, but there was a twinkle in his eye.
I agree with the negative reviews of our podcast. Hannah Montana costs a lot more than that. You got a bargain.
What do you think you look like?
What do you think you look like? Things I learned last night. I got carded. They needed to see my ID.
You called me in the middle of church.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Did you step out of church?
Yeah, I stepped out to listen to the voicemail.
Yeah.
I was
like middle of worship.
No, literally,
just like,
I'm not even kidding. We're in church, and you called me, and I'm like, oh, Jaren's calling me, and then so I ignore it, and then you left the voicemail, and I was like, oh, Jaren never leaves a voicemail. So I like,
oh, it was pretty funny.
I leaned over to Brie. I was like, hey, Jaren left a voicemail. I'm gonna go see what's going on, make sure he's okay. And I went out of the lobby, and like all the volunteer and staff is out there doing stuff. I'm listening to your voicemail, laughing out loud.
So I got carded at Dunkin' because I borrowed a friend's vehicle, and in Madison, Wisconsin, and I drove to Dunkin', and I hand my Amex Gold card. It's like the Gold card. They're thick. Yeah, they're like heavy. They're metal hardy cards.
Yeah.
And the girl, she goes, "Oh, you have a nice card." And I heard, you have a nice car. So I said, oh, it's my friend's. And she goes, I don't think you're allowed to do that. And I was like, borrow someone's car? She goes, no, you can't use somebody else's card. And I was like, I'm using, did you say card? She's like, yeah. And so I had to show her my ID to prove that was my credit card.
Because she didn't believe you.
She was like, I feel like I should see your ID.
That's a good thing to just say to people generally.
Yeah, I feel like I should see your ID. Yeah. I feel like I should see.
Yeah, I think you're lying to me about who you are. I feel like I should see your ID.
I feel like I should see some proof of
that's so funny.
You existing.
You got ID'd at a Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, anyway. I told her, I said, I'm the third richest person in Madison, Wisconsin right now. I said, she goes, show me your ID. And I went, oh, sorry, that's my bank statement. I'm sorry.
It might be. Yeah. That's a screenshot of my bank statement. I printed at Staples this morning. I wasn't even worried about the fee.
It's a laminated picture of my bank account.
I went to Staples to print this screenshot of my bank statement, and they said that'll be $6.98. Are you sure you want that cost? And I was like, did you see the screenshot?
Yeah. Well, I was like, well, I'm gonna need another one after I pay for the updated balance. I just like to carry it with me to know all the time.
Yeah.
I got a lot of Staples points.
There's a guy from Staples who follows you around printing stuff every time he buys something. He's got like a mobile. It's like a belt clip, that printer. It's like a printer.
Well, that's my assistant. He doesn't even work for Staples anymore. I hired him. So anyway.
So every
He's the third richest person in Japan.
Yeah, third richest person in Japan. And this is where the can of worms is, because if you look at Forbes, he's the 74th richest person in the world. If you look at Bloomberg, he's the 159th.
Okay.
And so that's where the can of worms is just all these places are just guessing. They're just like, we know how many shares you have.
Well, it's different evaluations. Yeah.
Yeah, we know your companies, we know your houses, and we can check on Zillow what they're worth. And that's about all we can know. They really don't know. They don't. Yeah. They're just guessing. So he's somewhere.
Yeah, the internet thinks I'm worth like $1 million.
They
right?
do actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's rich is the point of the story.
Sure.
He's a very rich person, but he's insane, and I'm pretty excited.
He's rich, and that doesn't make up for the fact that he's a crazy person.
He's bonkers, man.
Okay.
So he is.
How did he get rich? Are we going to talk about that?
We're going to cover that. Here's
we're going to cover that.
Here's the quick thing you need to know.
Okay.
At one point in his life, he was the richest person on earth.
Okay.
He also holds a couple world records.
What?
So he longest fingernails. I'm kidding. That's not true.
Oh my gosh, I was really worried.
What?
And you were like longest fingernails. So you're talking about a billionaire who's got those. Have you seen the person with the longest fingernails?
Yeah, they curl
it's
around.
Gross. Why don't you just, if you want to ruin your day, listener, why don't you go Google longest fingernails record holder? It is disturbing to look at.
It's real bad.
Yeah, you know what he looks like is the weird rat guy in Harry Potter who's got the teeth, like the front teeth. What's his name?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the longest fingernails guy looks like.
Yeah, actually. Yeah. No, he holds two world records. One of them is the single greatest investment in investing history, in recorded investing history.
Like the biggest return or what?
Yeah, the largest return.
Wow.
He also holds the record for the single largest loss in investing history.
I really want it to be on the same deal.
It's not. But
dang.
Man, I wish it was.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting guy. We'll start from the top of his story. Masayoshi Son. He was born in Togu, Japan.
Okay.
Tosu, Japan in 1957. He was born in 1957.
Tobu. Todu, Tosu, you just put it out. You could say anything.
I tell you, I haven't used that word in a long time. Tovu vavohu. I used to use that a lot.
What?
What are you laughing so hard about?
What does it even mean?
Tovu vavohu.
What? I haven't used that in a long time. Yeah, it sounds like a freaking witch potion. What are you talking about?
That's the Hebrew phrase that you find in Genesis 1 for formless and void, or a better rendering of it that I like is complete chaos. And so
you would say this is tovu vavovu.
Yeah.
Did you know I have tovuvovo@gmail.com?
But I love it because the word itself is tovu vavohu.
Okay.
And then it's a
never heard you say that. And for you to be like, I mean, I haven't said that in a while. You know. Okay.
Tovu vavohu. Anyway, so yeah, this guy's life is tovu vavohu.
The way he just said that, could you like clip that and make that a soundboard thing?
Tovu vavohu.
Tovu vavohu.
I want us to get a soundboard pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. Can you imagine if both of us just had a board of sound effects we could just drop in this?
We would have. Last year, we had the greatest growth of a podcast listenership we've ever experienced. We would also experience the greatest loss of podcast listenership if we had a soundboard.
Couple world records right there.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, and then I'm going to grow my fingernails out real long.
No reason.
Yeah, I'll cut them before I get the world record.
Imagine being the person who doesn't have the world record.
Yeah,
though.
you're just working on it.
You know?
I'm working on the world record.
Or you used to have it.
Someone took it from you.
I mean, you're just walking around just freaking.
I don't know how they survive like that.
Oh, yeah.
And how long it takes to go. Anyways.
That's a different thing.
Yeah, so this guy, he lived in Japan. Apparently, this is a thing. His great-grandfather was a Korean immigrant to Japan.
Okay.
And apparently, that group faces a lot of discrimination in Japan, which is interesting. I never knew that. And so he had a pretty rough upbringing in his youth.
Oh, I didn't know that. Like, the different kind of Asians hate each other.
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty common.
So he got bullied a lot in his early youth. His family didn't own a vehicle. They were pretty poor.
Sure.
But his dad ended up finding a road to decent wealth.
Okay.
Decent wealth because he got into an illegal sake business.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
And so they were actually the first family in his town to own a car because of that business that his dad got into illegally.
Yeah, but hey, how'd you get that car?
I bought it.
Yeah, it's like the mob, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
You can't ask me
Illegal sake, why we made it illegal? They just weren't allowed to.
I'm not sure, honestly.
What year was this?
This was the early 1960s, so I don't know if they had a prohibition in Japan. I really don't know.
Anyway, so they had a car.
And so like he had a tough childhood, right? When he was in high school, he read a book about the president of McDonald's Japan. His name's Den Fujita, and he was very inspired by this guy because this guy got in touch with McDonald's, talked them into bringing McDonald's to Japan, and then like blew it up in Japan. And so his business prowess really inspired Masa, and Masa called him to try to get some advice, and he kept getting his secretary. And yeah, you look confused.
No, I think I know who Masa is.
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
Let's find out. And so he calls the secretary, and the secretary is like, I don't know if he's going to take a meeting with you. And then I saw an interview with him relatively recently where he was like, I kept calling her, and she kept saying, I don't think he's going to take an interview with a student. And he said, I don't need you to decide. I need him to decide. Ask him. As a high school student.
Yeah.
And so he keeps calling long distance phone calls to Tokyo to try to get a phone call with this guy. And the secretary is just not putting him through. And he says, I must have called 100 times. And she just never would put me through to him. And so finally he's like, I did the math and I realized if I spent any more
on long distance calls,
it's going to cost more than a flight. So he said, I just booked a flight and I flew to Tokyo. And I walked into his office and I said, hey, I'm that guy that has been calling.
And the secretary was like, but she's like 65, right? And she can't stop me. So, yeah, I don't think she can stop me.
And so it impressed the guy that this kid flew out to see him.
Sure.
And so he's like, I'll give him 15 minutes. And so he sits down with him and he said, what business should I get into? And the guy told him computers. And so he said, okay. And so he moved to the United States at 16.
Masa?
Yeah. So okay. Masa moves to LA at 16 to pursue a degree
at 16?
in computing. Yeah.
How? Who? What?
I don't know. He just got on a boat or something. In every interview or publication I could find,
no one clarifies. He goes, yeah, I was 16.
I just moved to the U.S. Well, he had some family in San Francisco that I'm sure at some point ended up there. Obviously, they're there. And so
he had some family. That's what I'm saying.
He moved out there, moved in with them, and then started high school. And within a few days, he was like, I know everything they're trying to teach us here. And so he just went and tested for his GED.
This is useless.
Literally 3 weeks after he gets there, he just gets his GED.
That was an option. We could have done that the whole time. I'm kind of serious.
I think so. I think you at any point could just be like, yeah, I'm going to test out of this. I think.
What?
So he does that and he enrolls at UC Berkeley. And at 16, he starts college.
Yeah. And then at college, he was like, I know all this.
Well, here's what happened. He's going to class, he's doing his lectures, and he's like, I couldn't help but feel like this wasn't the best use of my time. He felt like I'm spending a lot of time getting this degree, and he said, well, I could be spending my time doing something else and actually making money. And so he hired another Japanese student to go to class for him and pretend to be him, because he's like, they're not going to notice. This is 100% true.
Hold on. So he was like, why not just drop out? Why pay someone else to go?
Well, he knew the degree was important. He knew the piece of paper was important. But he didn't feel like spending 4 years in a classroom was worth his time. So he was like...
So he doesn't actually know anything of the degree, though.
Well, no. He's like, I'll do the reading. I'll take the tests. He said, you just go sit in the lectures for me. In my place.
That was also an option?
I mean, no. But he did it. I'm sure if UC Berkeley knew what he was doing, they would not have given him.
He was really banking on them not being able to tell the difference. You know? He really was, though.
I mean, what does that say about the college as a whole?
Yeah.
Because that was
like,
4 years. Every professor for 4 years had no idea.
But he's showing up to take the test, though. So they're seeing two different Japanese people. And in their brains, they're just like, yeah, same one.
The same guy. So what he does, instead of going to class, he was like, what's the best way I could spend my time? And he said,
what do you hold auditions? You put a picture of yourself around town? You go looking for someone who looks. Do you look like me? Do I have an opportunity for you? I'm still sorry. So he go ahead. So he did what next?
So he's like, what's the best use of my time? I freed up all my time. How can I make money? And so he had two things.
Well, yeah, now he's got an expense. He's got to pay this kid.
Yeah, true. So he had two ideas. He said, one,
your first employee is a lookalike. Yeah, started a company at 17. My first employee was someone to just do the things I don't want to do.
To just sit somewhere and look like
that was an option the whole time. You're gonna the person who's gonna be sitting in this chair next week will be so convincing.
Looks so vaguely like you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
So how freaking funny if our next episode is just two random dudes who kind of look like us.
Just insane. We have to do it.
Who do we know?
Are you still friends with Home Depot guy?
Oh yeah, he lives in San Antonio now.
Yeah, we can fly him in.
Okay.
He looked similar.
He does, yeah. There's a guy that goes to Post Coffee that everyone thinks looks like me.
I know.
Yeah.
Let's get him over here.
Hopefully they don't even have to talk. We'll record the episode. They can
Trey Kennedy lives here. He could be me. We look alike.
What do you think you look like?
What do you think you look like? That's a fun game. Why'd you pull up somebody you think? You ever been tagged on a picture online and someone tags you and they're like, you look just like this guy. This happens to me all the time. People will tag their friends in my posts and they'll be like, yeah, you look just like this guy. And then every time I go to that account, I am never like, wow, thanks. Never.
Wow, thanks.
Every single time I'm like, oh, frick, is that what I look like?
Frick.
Every stinking time.
Well, here, I just grabbed a picture of someone that I think I look like.
No, stop. Do not. I know exactly where you're going and I hate it. I don't even want to do this. We have to edit it out.
No,
don't do it. Yeah, we do.
Why?
Oh, okay. That's pretty dumb.
I look a lot like him.
Yeah, I can see the features. You know, he looks like your lizard more than anybody. Tim's lizard almost died today.
Yeah,
sounds like a joke, but that's a real thing.
It was pretty dramatic. I'm not going to lie.
Anyway, we're way
we're way out of here.
away.
Let me get this Vin Diesel tab closed. That's who I put on screen. If you're
It was
listening.
Vin Diesel. Yeah, audio listener.
I'm pretty sure if I shave my head, I look a lot like him. If I shave my head and wear a wife beater.
I thought you're serious.
I'm serious. If I shave my head and wear a wife beater, I look a lot like Vin Diesel. You remember?
Okay. Yeah, maybe 50 pounds ago. You haven't gained that much.
Yeah.
Probably like 40. We do need to find lookalikes, though. Hey, listen, if you listen
to this and you think I feel like I look like these guys sound.
I was going to say, if you listen to this, you probably don't even know what we look like. And just find somebody you think matches this. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. If you like this podcast, you want more of it, please leave a review. That's super helpful to let others know who are searching for a podcast. And if you're new around here, we've been doing this for several years, and there's plenty of episodes to check out. One of my personal favorites is Agent Garbo. It was a guy who went to the government during World War II and was like, hey, let me be a double agent. And they were like, no. And then he was like, well, I'm gonna. And so he kind of went off on his own, did the thing. And it's also got some crazy details about World War II, about how the U.S. used inflatable tanks to trick Germany, all kinds of fun stuff. But if you want to go check that out, you can. But thank you so much for listening to this podcast.
Okay, so where
this
were
is a
we?
long bit.
So he's in college.
He's not in college. Someone else is in
for
college.
him.
Yeah. What's he doing in his time away?
So he starts two businesses.
Okay.
The first one is he said there's this like famous interview of him where he's in the interview and they said, so what did you do in college when you weren't going to college? And so he said, I started thinking, what's the best use of my time? And he said, the best use of my time is to invent things. And so he said, so every day I would get out my journal and I would just, invention, come.
No, you're joking.
Yeah, he literally in that interview.
No, you're joking. That's what he said?
He said, invention, come. And he said, I would just dedicate
That's how I
time.
write jokes, by the way. I sit down with a notebook and I go, humor, arrive. It's the right combination of words is what you're looking for. Humor, arrive, jokes, come.
Yeah. He said that what he would do is he just dedicated time every day to sit and think about problems that existed in the world and invent something. And so he said every day he would spend some time thinking about the problems that he faced and problems that other people around him faced and then try to figure out a way to solve that problem. And so he didn't
he came up with lookalikes.com. That was a problem he had, and he had solved it.
Don't need to go to school anymore. No, so he never actually built these inventions. He was just keeping a logbook of all these possible inventions.
Got it. Okay.
And so some of the things in the book, they were actually really clever ideas. And so like one of them, he noticed that his pencils always rolled off his table. And so he's like, what if pencils were square or triangle? And then you could just set them and they wouldn't roll. And
doesn't that exist now, though?
It does now, but back then, this is the 60s. They were dumb back then.
Okay.
Another thing that he came up with was traffic lights are, if you're colorblind, they're not helpful. And he said, so make the red, yellow, and green different shapes. So if you're colorblind, you just know what shape is on is the color. So some pretty creative solutions to some ideas.
Okay.
Ends up landing on an invention as like a pocket electronic translator. And so essentially a dictionary to translate languages, but it's in your pocket. So think Google Translate, like very early Google Translate, you could type in a word.
Sure.
And then it would find that word in its index and give you the translation.
Okay.
And so
you could type in, tovu
vavohu.
Tovu vavohu.
Yeah, and it would say absolute chaos. And so he went and he hired one of his professors on credit, paid him.
He's like,
100%
hey,
on credit.
you know me. He actually had to have his lookalike go hire him. He's like, will you go to this interview for me? Because the professor didn't know me.
And so he hires his professor to start building it. And so they kind of work together. They're working together building this pocket translator.
Okay.
And so him and his professor are kind of working together building this product. And he's kind of, his professor's taking care of all the technical stuff because he didn't know how to do anything. And he's kind of doing the oversight and the vision and the planning and like figuring out how they're going to go sell this after the fact. So that's probably spending half of his time. The other half of his time doing this, he noticed that the game Space Invaders just came out and it was really popular.
How is he making money though? Like how is he, you know what I'm saying?
well, this.
Who's he living with?
I think at this point he's still with his parents or his family.
His family members.
Yeah, his family.
Okay.
But he's got to make money because he's paying that other student. I don't know
That's
if
what I
he's
was
paying
saying.
for that on credit because he's kind of notorious for betting really big, taking out a bunch of credit, and then paying it off in the back run.
Oh,
which
I
is
am
what
too.
happened here.
Yeah, me too. My Old Navy credit card will speak to that. I'm like, man, you know what's going to get me booked? A new outfit.
So his other business idea, he saw that Space Invaders had just come out.
Yeah.
And he said, man, this game's super popular. Everybody wants to play it, but it's only in arcades. And any arcade you go to in the city, there's a giant line. Like, you're never going to get to play it unless you just sit around for a long time. And so what he did is he found the manufacturers of Space Invaders that were in Japan, and he had them ship them by plane to him and ordered, I'm not even kidding, tens of thousands of these machines. 100% on credit. Space Invaders. Like the Space Invader arcade game.
Like the full arcade game.
And he bought them on credit because what he
How much
said-
money is that?
Tons. I don't know exactly
How
how
is a
much.
17-year-old?
Well, here's what he did. He bought it all on credit, and he did the math.
You're not hearing me. What you just said, bought it on credit. Who is giving that much credit to a 17-year-old?
That's a good point. Most likely, what I would assume in this
Family members help?
is it was a situation where he's not actually like taking out a credit card or a loan or something. He's going to the people he's buying from, and he gets like net 30 or net 60 payment terms.
Oh,
on
I
it.
got you.
And so
And
less
he's
of
like, I'm going to go sell these.
yeah. And so he said, if I ship it by plane, it's going to cost more, but I can get it in location faster. And with how popular this is, I think I'll have enough money to pay it off before
Where do you store-
the payment terms come due.
Where do you store that many arcade games?
Well, he would literally get them and just start moving them around town. And so he put them on college campises and like every dorm in the campus, like on every
you're
floor.
getting money from the quarters.
Yeah. And so he put it on like every floor. He put it all over the place. He made $1.5 million off of these games. That's how popular they were. And the invoice came due, and he's like, easy. Because he took a giant bet. I don't know exactly how much his cost was on it, but he took a giant bet. Like, if this didn't work, he was dead. Like, he was dead. But it worked.
What happens if it doesn't?
He's dead.
Do you think literally murdered?
Well, I don't think he's murdered.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
But he's
realistically,
never-
what happens?
I mean, he wouldn't.
He would never be able to do anything again.
Yeah, he wouldn't. He would be stuck with his debt for the rest of his life, probably. Or what happened with his other business? Him and his professor, they've finished their pocket translator thing.
Okay.
They went on tour in Silicon Valley, like early Silicon Valley.
Sure.
And eventually Sharp, like, like the TVs and electronics and stuff like that
Yeah.
they make. They bought it, $1.7 million.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, we should just invention come. Invention come.
I got it.
What?
It's a pitchfork. But it's retractable.
Telescopic. Yeah.
Telescopic. That's a great word. We should use that in our pitch. Fork. Oh, hold on.
Telescopic pitchforks for your desk pitch.
We need to look up flights to Tokyo immediately. I've got a secretary I'd like to punch.
Pitch. I'd like to pitch.
I'd like to pitch.
I got a secretary I'd like to pitch. So after they sold that, he liquidated all of his games. Made a decent chunk of money, but it wasn't anywhere near what he was making off of the quarters. Made a decent chunk of money and used the money that he made from operating the games, the money he made from selling the translator, to start a game company called Unison World, which was a video game company.
Okay.
Making arcade games. He hired a couple of people to make the games, and it worked decently well. Shortly after he graduated,
And his employees hired people to show up and do their job.
He said, hey.
You can't get mad.
He offered them a job, and he said, but hey, by the way, there's this website.
What if you went home?
Hire people to do your job for you.
You show up at home, and some random woman walks into your house, and you go, hello? She goes, hi. How was your day? And you go, good. Who are you? It's like,
good.
Very funny, Tim.
Who are you?
Very funny, Tim.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, did you pick up the lizard? And you're like, who are you? And she's like, look, our pictures are on the wall.
They've
changed them.
How
far-
long before you just think, maybe I was wrong about what she looked like? Like, how long does that joke have to play out?
How long before you go, I guess that's my wife. Am I? Yeah. I mean, Nathan Fielder used the website to do the rehearsal, so.
Yeah, that's true. This guy's basically Nathan Fielder. So anyways.
So they're making games.
Yeah, they're making games. Shortly after he graduates from college in 1980, he sells it for $2 million, the game company.
Okay.
So he's got a couple decent size
So
sells.
he's doing like hold on to an asset, get rid of it, kind of climb
it's
up
that
kind
concept.
of thing.
Yeah. And so then he decides, okay, now it's the real play. What he came out here for, which was to start a computer company.
Yeah.
And so he had kind of been watching the trends in the computing world for a little bit. And
what year is this now?
1980.
1980.
Right after he graduated college.
Got it. Okay.
Graduated.
Yeah. Someone else graduated college.
Yeah. Someone else graduated college. He got credit for it. And so he'd been watching trends in computers, and he believed that software was the next big thing. He said, we figured out hardware.
Yep.
Hardware is about to come into the home. And then software's going to be the big thing to make a lot of money. So he starts Softbank, which was going to be a software sales company, basically. They're going to have all the software and sell it to everybody. So he hired a couple of employees, and shortly after hiring the 2 employees, he stood up on a literal soapbox in the office, and he said, this is going to be $1 billion company one day. And
there's like 3 employees.
Yeah.
And they're all like...
They quit. They all were like, this guy's insane.
They quit?
I don't know if they quit. The legend is that they quit, but I don't know if that's true. It's legend goes.
Okay.
But anyways, so the company, they did genuinely think that their founder was a psychopath. And
just because he said it was going to be $1 billion?
Well, no, because he is insane. I mean, if anything at this point you haven't seen, like, this guy's insane.
But how old is he at that point?
He's early 20s.
Yeah.
Early 20s, and just burning through cash trying to make stuff for the Softbank work.
Sure.
And it's not catching on. He's trying to start a magazine. That doesn't work. He tries to do sales. That doesn't work. And eventually, after years of this play, he ends up buying a very early share in Yahoo.
Interesting.
Which worked out.
Yeah.
Yahoo got really, really big in the mid-90s. And I think at one point, let me double check my number here. At one point, that share of Yahoo ended up climbing to be worth $100 million.
One share?
Yeah. Not one share. It wasn't one share. He bought a large share, like a large percentage
got it.
of the company. It wasn't a single
I was
stock.
like, they were $100 million per share? What the heck?
No. And so he made a lot of money off of that investment.
Okay.
And then he went on a spree.
And he sold his investment in Yahoo.
Yeah, he sold his investment in Yahoo and then just went on a shopping spree with a bunch of other tech companies.
In the mid-90s?
In the mid-90s.
What's he buying in the 90s?
All of those .com.
Yeah.
Because there was just all these different .coms coming out that everyone's like, it's crypto. It's going to be great. It'll never go down. So
right.
That's exactly what he was doing. He was just buying all of them. Like, pick one, he's in them all. And so he started what he called the Vision Fund. And this was kind of a turning point for Softbank, because before this, Softbank was kind of like they wanted to sell software.
Sure.
At this point, he starts the Vision Fund, and Softbank becomes, we're investing in software. So we're more like an actual bank. Like the name before was like, it's a bank where you buy software. Now it's like we invest in software.
We
fund software.
Got it.
And so he would find all these early software companies and dump a bunch of money into it. He started this vision fund, which was billions of dollars. And he went and found all these other investors to come invest in it. And he obviously had a major piece in that. And they were investing in all these giant funds. And so what he came out with in the 90s, he said, we're going to start a $100 billion fund. And everybody's like, you're an insane person. Because it never happened. Nobody had ever put that much money into a single fund before.
Sure.
He ends up pulling it off and puts together this vision fund worth $1 billion. And in 99, he becomes the richest man in the world because they had successfully been doing all these investments in all these different .coms that were blowing up.
Okay.
3 days later, the .com bubble crashes. And he lost $70 billion.
What?
Which is the single greatest loss in history. 3 days after he became the world's richest person, he lost $70 billion.
At that point, though, it's cartoon money, though.
That is kind of true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got $100 billion and you lose 70,
you still have $30 billion. Yeah.
It's cartoon money.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. And
that's like whenever someone inherits, I don't know, some functioning businesses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then every year they lose money.
Yeah.
But then you go, well, they still got a successful business. Therefore, they are successful. You're like, well, no. They're slowly dying.
They're slowly draining. But
it's still a cartoon amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have that much at one point, you're probably fine. So his fund is still worth $30 billion even after the .com crash.
Right.
So,
what day was the .com crash?
Giant loss. I don't know. Sometime in '99. I don't know exactly the day.
Okay. You don't have a device or anything that you could look that up on, or?
No, I actually sold my translator last week. My pocket translator.
I have a thing in my pocket. It only tells me when economic crashes have happened. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So
it's a crash pod.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pocket crash.
Pocket crash. Yeah, I'm looking it up for you. That sounds like an early iPhone game.
Pocket crash. Pocket crash.
The .com bubble in the United States. It ended abruptly in early 2000s is what it says. I don't know what day that is.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry. Okay. Anyways. So he lost a lot of money. Which was pretty sad. Whatever. Who knows? Who cares?
Which was pretty whatever. I mean, like it. Lost a lot of money. So.
But like I said, he still had a ton of money left over.
What did he do with his $30 billion left?
Well, he went in the year 2000, shortly after the .com bubble burst. And he
was like, .org, guys. I got a feeling.
The .org bubble.
It's about to
blow up.
.biz. Don't even get me started on .biz. .info.
Yeah. We should start a .co. Just drop the M. No one will know.
Yeah, what is up with that?
Yeah.
What's up with the .co.uk? What's up with, what's going on with domains?
It's a mess.
Okay.
It's a mess. Anyways, so he meets this guy named Jack Ma in Japan. But at this point, he had moved back to Japan. I forgot that detail. That happened years ago in the early 90s. He moved back to Japan. Was like, I'm going to do this in Japan.
Well, one day, I'm going to do it in Japan. I'm going to do it in Japan. I'm going to do it in Japan.
Do it in Japan.
I'm going to go to Japan. I'm going to go. Yeah. You're like, why? What are you talking about? I'm going to go to Japan.
What are you
That's the way you said it. I'm going to do this in Japan. Like really breathy for some reason. Like you're like,
I'm going to Japan. So anyways, he meets this guy in Japan named Jack Ma.
Okay.
And the guy was starting a new business. And he says in interviews, I met with him a couple times, and in conversations with him, he seemed like he didn't know much about business. He was very young, very honestly just ignorant, didn't know what he was doing.
Sure.
But he said, but there was a twinkle in his eye.
Okay.
He said, I
gave him $30 billion.
He gave him $20 million.
Okay.
And Jack Ma invested that money to start Alibaba.
Okay.
Which the $20 million ended up
Which,
after...
you may not know who Alibaba is, but maybe you know her sister AJ, Ali and AJ. $20 million. And I created a Disney Channel original star who also has a sister. Hannah Montana costs a lot more than that. You got a bargain. I'm going to tell you that.
Are you saying Ali from AJ and Ali?
Ali and AJ,
like
say it right.
Japanese produced robot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
For Disney Channel.
Yeah, no, you're
to have a...
I don't. You're asking questions, but we're on the same page.
Hey, thanks again for listening to this episode. If you like our show, make sure you follow us on social at TILLN Podcast or subscribe anywhere where you're listening to right now, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, whatever it is. And if you want more, we do have a Patreon you can support us on. In there, you get all sorts of perks like ad-free episodes, early access to our content, and even a Discord with our hosts and producers. So we'd love for you to check that out. All you got to do is text TILLN to 66866. That's TILLN to 66866. But thanks again for checking us out. Okay, interesting.
$20 million, and he started Alibaba.
You know what Alibaba is, though, right?
No idea.
This is just a bit, right?
No, I have no idea.
Alibaba, are you serious? You don't know what Alibaba is?
I guess not.
So Alibaba is like Amazon for the East.
Oh.
But it's public in the US now, and it recently blew up. I shouldn't say recently. In like 2014, it blew up in the US because similar to Amazon, like people can just sell stuff on there.
Oh, got
but they're
it.
selling
Yeah.
stuff in the East where for them profits in the West like are way lower. So people are going on Alibaba and buying like real, like it got really popular for like NFL jerseys or really any sports jerseys.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're like a quarter of the price. Because it's profitable there.
Gotcha.
But here it's ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still the case, but in 2014 it was really popular for that. But they're basically the equivalent of Amazon in the East.
Sure.
So they're huge now, like absolutely gigantic. And so his share, after it's been diluted a few times, his investment because of IPOs globally and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So his share now is a 27% share in Alibaba, which...
Masa's share?
Yeah, Masa's share, his $20 million, which is now worth $130 billion, which is the single greatest investment in investing history.
Wow.
Which is a pretty big win. After you break the world record for biggest lost, he got biggest win.
Yeah.
He made the investment about a year later. It took years for it to become the greatest. But yeah, massive win. And he's just been kind of riding that coattails forever since that. Because now he's just like, yeah, I found Alibaba. And like he had done a lot of big stuff before that. He was obviously once one of the richest people in the world. And so
was he involved in WeWork? Is that Masa?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, yep. So that's what happened. They brought the Vision Fund back, the $100 billion Vision Fund. And he said, before software, he predicted that software was coming. After software, he predicted that internet was coming, and he invented and started investing in the tech bubble. After the .com bubble burst, he was like, oh, this is an interesting story. He saw mobile phones coming before it happened. And so in 2005, he was in Japan with his notebook saying, invention, come. And he thought of how crazy would it be if you could have a computer in your pocket and you could take it with you everywhere and surf the net and buy stuff and spend money on this thing right in your pocket. And so he said, who could make this? And he said he loved Steve Jobs. So he hopped on a plane, flew to California.
Is he saying that he gave Steve Jobs the... no, you're making this up.
No, I'm telling the truth.
Walked in,
I'm telling the truth.
Punched the secretary.
Walked in, had a meeting with Steve Jobs and told Steve Jobs this vision. And he said Steve was like, Masa. He said, he opened up a drawer and he's like, here's a prototype of the iPhone. He said, this is something we've been working on. And he said,
Oh,
but we
wow.
haven't announced this yet. It was 2005. It was 2 years before they announced it.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Have we talked about that before? Have you seen the announcement video of the iPhone?
it's awesome.
It is, honestly, it's one of the coolest things, but it's very dramatic where Steve Jobs is like, we're releasing an iPod, an email processor, a web browser, and a phone.
And everyone's like,
And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, an iPod, a web browser,
a
the
phone.
And you're like,
and everyone's like, yeah, you said that.
An iPod. He just does it over and over, and then eventually goes, "Are you getting it? It's all one device." And everyone in the room goes,
shows the picture on the screen, and they lost their minds.
If you have time, go watch the video. It is so fascinating to watch because I remember watching that. We were in middle school.
Yeah.
I remember watching that.
It was mind blowing,
and it was crazy.
Yeah, because he showed the unlock, and because there was no buttons, and it blew your mind. And
There's one button.
He swiped his finger across it, and everyone's like, "What?"
Because when people were like the stylist, when they're like, stylist, I can lose it, or whatever. He goes, but here's what I hate: is in that video, in that presentation, he said phones are too big.
Yeah.
Look, our iPhone, you can have your thumb at the bottom of the screen, and you can still reach the top. They designed it small enough that you could do that whole thing.
Yeah.
And now, what's the problem, Tim?
Gigantic.
They're huge.
It's
but you know what came out last year? I've talked about this on the podcast before. An iPhone Mini, where your thumb.
Well, that's why I won't upgrade mine, because I'm not even kidding. I haven't said this to you in a long time.
Tim will do anything
for
to
real,
not upgrade his phone.
The 8 was the last decent sized iPhone.
Okay.
Now that they've came out with the new one, it's like whatever. Maybe I'll get that, but whatever.
All right. Every day, Tim's got new excuses for not upgrading his phone. He will do anything. He was supposed to go to the store today. And get a new phone. And then he calls me. He goes, "Hey, dude, my lizard's dying." And I was like, "Bro, you would rather drown your lizard than get a new phone?" We can make the joke. Your lizard's fine.
Yeah. Well, we think so. We haven't got the blood work back yet.
Yeah, it could. I can't believe lizards live for 30 years.
Yeah. They outlive some humans.
I was going to say, that would really suck.
It outlives me. My lizard's my legacy.
And then I'll still be able-bodied, right? I'm obviously clearly going to outlive you by a lot. And I'll come put that lizard on your chest. And I go, you guys can go together. You die with your lizard. I hope that doesn't happen.
She survives.
Your wife?
The lizard.
Oh, the lizard's still alive. And then Bree's just in there like, well,
I'll pick the lizard up, I guess.
She's like, Jaren, that was really weird that you did this.
It was weird that you did that. How'd you get into our house?
And I go, you're not the real Bree. I know the truth.
20 years ago,
he
you
may
walked
be
in his
fooled.
house.
He may be fooled, but I'm not. I know. Anyway.
But yeah, so he tells...
That's crazy.
He tells Steve all about this idea, and Steve's like, we're already working on that. We just haven't announced it yet. And so Masa is like, oh my gosh. He said, give me exclusive rights to sell in Japan. And Steve's like, Masa, you're crazy. We haven't even announced this. It's not even done with production. I'm not giving you exclusive rights to Japan before it's done. And he's like fighting him on it. And he's like, fine. He's like,
but I thought of it.
He's like, it's my idea. It's my idea.
That's what I say every time I see a French horn. I go, I thought of that.
So Masa gets a piece of paper and writes. He's like, you agree to give me, and writes a line. He's like, sign it, give me rights. And Steve is like, I'm not gonna do it. And he's like, what if I show you I have the infrastructure to sell it better than anybody in Japan? And he's like, if you can come back to me and prove that you can sell this better than anyone in Japan, then I'll give you exclusive rights. And so this is 2 years before they announced the iPhone. Masa goes back to Japan, and he, on credit again, buys the largest phone retailer in Japan, comes back to California weeks later.
Yeah,
walks in.
What year was it? There was a time where you could only get an iPhone if you had AT&T.
Yeah. They were the only retailer at the very beginning. They had exclusive rights.
Is that because of a deal like this?
Yeah, it was the same sort of concept. AT&T got exclusive rights to it, and so they were the only one in the U.S. that could sell it.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And so it's the same concept in Japan. He went and he bought this company. I can't remember what it's called. And he walked back into Steve's office and he's like, hey, I bought the largest phone company in Japan. And he said, let me have exclusive
You still got
rights.
that scrap piece of paper I made?
And Steve was like, Masa, you're insane. Sure, fine.
I guess.
You've got it.
Sure.
And so he won exclusive rights. And what's interesting is Japan already they weren't anything comparable to the iPhone, but they were pocket computing devices. And so when it released in Japan, it didn't hit the same hype that it did in the US because Japan was like, we've got similar things.
Sure.
And they just carry multiple of them to do different things. And so what Masa did is he undercut the price of all those for like 2 years to let it gain popularity. And because of that...
Same way Uber did with taxis.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden now you can't get a taxi, so you have to pay the $30 Uber.
Mm-hmm. And it made it to where when Samsung launched their phones, they're from Japan, they could barely compete with the iPhone there because Masa had done such a good job undercutting the market.
Wow.
And made it just the phone that everybody had. So again, just a freaking crazy person.
Yeah.
And so
ruthless.
You mentioned he
was involved with WeWork.
After this, he went and he refunded the Vision Fund and went and started investing. He said, okay, mobile phone or software, internet, mobile phones. And he's like, next is AI. And so he started looking for all the AI type tech companies, and he just went nuts. And so he bought Uber. He actually bought literally all the driving apps because they were in some way, shape, or form working on some type of AI technology, whether that was how they were connecting you with drivers or actually working on self-driving cars. He passed on Tesla, which was ended up being a bad choice. He also passed on Amazon really early in Amazon, which ended up being a bad choice. But pretty much think of any app that exists, he probably invested in it with the Vision Fund.
Angry Birds.
Yes, invested in Angry Birds. This is the next biggest thing in AI. Look at the way you can flick this bird across
with your finger.
screen.
No stylus? Come on. Come on.
A phone, a web browser, a bird flicking device.
A bird killer. We looked at a device and we thought, how do we kill 4 birds with one thumb? You know?
How?
Do you want to go to Topgolf with me and my dad? My dad's so excited about the TVs that they have at Topgolf, where you swing the thing and it tracks the ball, and then no, you can play like the games.
Yeah.
He wants to play the Angry Birds one so bad. He's a Midwest dad through and through.
Let's play Angry Birds.
Who's just like, golf. Man, I would love. We went to the off-brand Topgolf the whole time. Wouldn't quit talking about how Topgolf's got Angry Birds.
Topgolf's got Angry Birds.
So 100%. That's exactly. He's like at Topgolf they have Angry Birds.
You know, Topgolf's got Angry Birds.
Yeah. So we should go. You want to go with us?
Yeah, I'll go with you.
No, you won't. You
literally set that whole story up just so you could say no.
Yeah, because I still have to take you flying, and I still have to.
I know. We're going to the game this weekend.
You still got to see the birth of my first child. She's holding it in still, man.
I asked him when it would work for him. He said, I don't know. I'll get back to you. It's been
months. I'm trying to find a time.
And she keeps saying, hey, you need to tell him. You need to ask him. Give me a date.
She can't talk anymore. She's in the hospital. She's in too much pain. Right?
We've put her into a coma.
She's got a 4-year-old inside of her. We were trying to figure out, we didn't want you to miss the birth of my first child, So...
Yeah, I want to miss it for the world. Let me give you a date.
Yeah. No, babe, he hasn't accepted the Google invite. I don't know.
You need to wait.
Yeah. Hold it in.
Jeez, can't you hold it? Come on.
Like 2 more hours selfish that you had your child without me. First of all, I know that's not your wife. All right. This is off the rails. So he's investing in all this AI stuff, right? And then along comes WeWork.
Yeah, so he invests in WeWork.
WeWork was pretending to be, for people who don't know, here's a quick synopsis. WeWork was pretending to be a tech company.
Yeah.
Because they were like, but they were a real estate company. That's all they were.
Yeah.
but for some reason they were pretending they were a tech company.
Yeah. Yeah, which I don't understand.
I don't understand how
I still don't understand how
I don't
they
get
got
how
away with
any investor was like,
Yeah, I don't.
It's
yeah, I don't
because
get it either.
WeWork had also a crazy founder, and it was definitely during that 2010 to 2014 window where crazy founders were like
visionaries.
Yes, and it was like and because people like Masa are looking for, they don't want to miss out on the Amazon, they don't want to miss out on the Tesla, right? So they're looking for that crazy person.
Yeah.
That if you were the right kind of crazy, the same thing with Theranos.
Yeah.
Is they never looked at the actual data and work being done. They just looked at like, I just really believe in this,
Yeah. Yep.
So
exactly. And so WeWork.
It's what it reminds me of? It reminds me of these college girls who marry guys for their potential.
Yeah.
Or you're dating and you're like, oh, they got good potential though.
Good potential to divorce you.
And it's like, no, your future is going to be rough.
Same concept. He invested a lot in
It's
WeWork.
a good analogy. I'm not going to lie. That's a great analogy.
That is. He invested in WeWork and it didn't pan out. WeWork ended up obviously not working out in a very gigantic way.
Great documentaries about it.
Yeah.
If you guys have. Maybe we should do an episode about WeWork.
Maybe we should. Because, it crumbled in a really kind of huge way.
Yeah.
And that soured Masa's reputation because people realized at that point that his fund was full of these gigantic losers. But he had a handful.
He had just enough good winners.
Gigantic winners. Like literally $100 billion wins.
Yeah.
Where it didn't matter that he had hundreds of multi-million-dollar losses.
But isn't that isn't that the way that investments work anyway? Well, not entirely. If you got like 97% of your portfolio is terrible and you got 3% that's great.
I think the idea, like obviously you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, but if you lose a lot.
But if you're losing, like he's losing at such mass, a lot of economists look at Masa's portfolio and say if it wasn't for Alibaba, he would not be able to do any of this.
Yeah.
He is floating himself with the Alibaba money, and he's able to dump so much money towards so much stuff where it's literally just like, I'm going to cast my net so wide that one of these might work. Which if you have that kind of money, sure.
It works though.
It works out. Like you're going to win.
I don't know, dude. Of the three of us, me, you, and Masa, we aren't the other two of the three richest people in Japan. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we can sit here and be like, at the end of this
episode, we just reveal that we're number 1 and 2 richest people in Japan.
Yeah. And you know the order. And if you don't, why don't you look at
my brand new iPhone on your bed stand?
my printed out screenshot.
Yeah, I don't have a Staples guy printing my statements for me.
Hey, Staples? Doesn't have a name. I call him Staples.
Yeah, I actually legally changed his name to Staples.
I got him at Office Depot. That's a slam. That's not even where he worked. That's a dig. Every time I call him Staples, he's like, okay. It was Office Max.
Yeah, it's on his ID now. When he goes to Dunkin' Donuts, I
legally changed. He goes to Dunkin' Donuts.
He goes to Dunkin' Donuts and she looks at his credit card and says, Staples, don't you have a last name? And she's like, I'm going to need to see some ID.
Wait, your last name is .biz? DOTBIZ.
Oh my God.
This is so dumb. I agree with the negative reviews of our podcast.
So critics of Masa say he has no idea what he's doing. He's just got really lucky a couple times in his life.
That makes sense.
He got lucky with the Sharp sale.
Yeah.
He got lucky with the sale of his first game company. And then he got really lucky with Yahoo. And he's just kind of been able to get lucky one after another with Yahoo.
But he says those were strategic.
Yes. Yeah. He thinks he's really smart, obviously. But he's
got a degree, so.
I have a degree from UC Berkeley that says I'm really smart. Meanwhile, the kid who went to school for him is printing his bank statements in the other room.
No, the guy that went to school for him is doing all these interviews.
Nobody knows what the real guy looks like. He's never made a public appearance. It's always been this kid from college. Oh my God. Steve Jobs was like, that's not the Masa that I met.
Like, you're not the Steve Jobs I met. It's a secret. Everybody does it. You know? Everybody does it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that assessment. I mean, it's, you know, when you got enough money, you can just throw enough of it out there. Now, if all of them fail spectacularly, that's pretty rough.
Well, some people say that he's exploiting the greater fool theory. Have you heard of that?
No.
So the greater fool theory says that there's always a greater fool. So if you invest $10 million in something, there's always someone who's a bigger fool than you that will buy it for $12 million.
Sure.
And so if you can just convince
I actually agree with that. You know what? That tracks.
And so they say that's what he's doing. He's just exploiting.
That's what everybody who is a house flipper, that's 100% what they're doing.
Oh yeah. Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
But that though,
that's exactly what a car dealership is based on, the greater fool theory.
Yeah, a house flipper is actually doing something to increase the value. Used car dealerships are just buying a car and trying to sell it for more.
Yeah,
that's more closer to a greater fool theory than house flippers. But some house flippers.
That's what I'm saying. Like some of them are just like whatever.
Yeah. Some others say that it's a questionable situation with what he's doing, because he does have close to $100 billion that he's pushing around in the market. And a single person having that much influence over the market is an issue, because
kind of dangerous.
He literally can at any point just move money in and out of companies and change their value just based on how he moves it. That's exactly what happened with GameStop, because so much money flew into GameStop, the value flew up. And then if you happened to be there early and sell, you made a ton of money off the whole presupposition that more money just flew into it.
Yeah.
So if you were the one person who did that,
I bought the highest stock of GameStop. I waited
when it was at its highest.
I was watching it grow, and I was like, I'm gonna wait. No one's gonna be the greater fool than me.
No one's gonna spend more on GameStop than I do. I want that record.
Yeah.
Someone call Guinness. I want them here for this.
We should. Never mind. Go ahead.
If
you want to buy stock in TILLN, we do have a Patreon.
We should start a TILLN stock market.
Yeah. TILLNbets.com.
And so he also has the funds to intimidate anybody else out of it.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
There have been many occasions where he has been one of many investors making bids on companies. And the fact that he is one of the names, other investors pull out because they say, I can't beat whatever Masa can offer. And he ends up becoming the only investor making an offer.
And then he can lowball
And then he can do whatever he wants at that point. So he's had some serious unfair advantages in those situations where people have... Because when you see a guy walk in with that screenshot, you say...
he slaps it down, you go, I can't compete with that.
compete with that screenshot.
Yeah.
So there's some questionable things about him and the way he moves money. He's obviously an absolute psychopath with the way he just flies across the country into people's offices and demands a meeting with them. Before he had the money or real prestige. Oh my God.
What do you want from us?
Is that Masa? Hold on.
Wait.
Try it again. Try it again. I need to be more serious.
Okay. Leave all of this in, whatever's going on right now. Ready?
Yeah. Yeah, you take the lead. I'll just follow.
That's what I tried to
do. It'll
do.
be a dance. I'll laugh
right.
this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a crazy person who just goes into different people's offices and just, shows up whenever.
Masa?
We know you're not the real one. We're not intimidated by you. Why am I talking to him like he's a ghost? Like he's haunting our building? Well, I know you're not real.
You have no power here.
Strength, come. What are you doing?
It's an exorcism. Dear Jesus. Protect us from the spirit of
You
Masa.
can't see if you're an audio listener, but I'm trying to pull away. Tim has my hands, and I can't. Oh,
no. Oh man, this is crazy. Well, I think Masa's got a deal for us.
Yeah, dude.
We should fiddle it off so we can hear it.
Hey, you made it to the end of the episode. You're probably asleep right now because you left it keep playing. But if you aren't asleep, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you get more videos. And also, if you can't wait for more, we've got plenty of other episodes and highlight clips, just some of our funniest parts, the things we enjoy the most. This show is an absolute blast, and I cannot thank you enough for being here.